I hope we've got a small enough group we'll be able to go around and ask a bunch of questions and make a bunch of comments. I'm looking forward to it. And that's why I'm here. I'm here not for you to listen to me, but for me to listen to you. And I want y'all to know that I am honored and privileged to represent the 1st Congressional District. We start up in Effingham County and go all the way down over to Lowndes County. We include 17 counties, got the whole coast of Georgia, over 100 miles of coastline, 2 major seaports, the Port of Savannah, the Port of Brunswick, 4 military installations, Fort Stewart, Hunter Army Airfield, Kings Bay, and Moody Air Force Base. And of course, we got a strong ag presence, a strong forestry presence, and we just got a lot to be thankful for and a lot to be proud of in the 1st Congressional District. I tell people up at the Capitol that it's the best district in the nation, and I feel like it is anyway. But I want to thank y'all for being here, and especially, this is the first time we've done a town hall meeting in Clinch County and Homerville. We wanted to do some more this go-round. We usually do them in February and August, and we usually done 7, but we extended it this time to 9, so we could include Homerville, and we're also going up to Effingham. I don't think we've been up to Effingham yet, so we're looking forward to being up there on Thursday. Before we get started, I always like to recognize our veterans. If we've got any veterans here or active military, if you'll please stand so we can recognize you. We want to thank you for your service to our country. It's because of you that we're able to gather here and to enjoy the freedoms that we enjoy and the rights that we enjoy. And we thank you for your service to our country. So, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, there's one little thing. We don't have a flag. So we're going to pretend like this light pole over here is our flag. So if y'all would just get up and if you'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, if you don't mind.
All right, I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States
of America,
to which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I've got just a very short presentation. I'm not going to take much time because, as I say, I came here to listen to you, not for you to listen to me. But I did want to go over just a couple of ground rules. First of all, we want to be respectful of each other. We may differ in our opinions and our points of view, but we respect each other. We're very fortunate, very blessed to live, as I said, in this country, that we enjoy these freedoms. We can be respectful of each other. Yes, we're going to disagree on some things, but we can still be respectful of each other. I want to ask you, if you can, to limit your opportunities to one question. I think we've got enough time. We'll be able to get back around for the second question, but we're going to try to give everybody an opportunity at least to ask one question. If we can try to cover as many topics as we can, so that if the topic's already been covered, there's not going to be a different answer. So please, let's just try to get as many topics in here as we can. The most important thing is, if this is a personal issue, we have to get a disclosure from you, a privacy disclosure. So if it's something personal, if you've got a situation that you need help with Social Security or with VA or with any of the departments, we're going to need to get a privacy disclosure from you. So we can't discuss it out in public until we get that done. We've got staff here today. If you're on staff, raise your hand so everybody can see you. We've got everybody here. We've got people from Washington as well as in our district offices. They're here. They want to help you. You see the numbers up on the screen here. If you need help, these are the numbers. Our Brunswick office covers this area, but you can call Savannah. They'll help you as well. I want to start by telling you about what we've done in the 115th Congress that started in January. Contrary to what you may have heard, we've actually gotten a lot of work done in the House of Representatives. In fact, we've passed over 400 bills, and they've been good bills, bills that I've been very proud of. For instance, we passed 14 continuing resolutions, 14 Congressional Review Acts, 14 Congressional Review Acts, CRAs. What that means is that we can go back 90 legislative days in the previous administration and claw back, if you will, any rule or regulation that we can get enough votes to pass it. We can claw back those regulations. We've done that with 14 different bills, saving taxpayers potentially almost $90 billion. Now that's significant. That's something we've done. We've also passed the VA Accountability and the Whistleblower Act. That is significant. It passed the House, it passed the Senate, it was signed into law by the President. Since it's gone into effect, we have had over 700 poorly performing veteran VA employees who have been either fired, retired, or quit. So that's a good thing. Now, we need good people working at the VA. These are our heroes, and we need to take care of them. We need to get rid of the poor performing employees there, and this bill has helped us to do that. We've also passed something that's called the Choice Act that has to do with the Dodd-Frank law that was passed many years ago whenever Wall Street collapsed. That bill was intended to make sure that the banks that were too big to fail, that didn't happen. It actually did just the opposite. It actually ended up hurting our community banks, especially here in the state of Georgia. We ended up losing, on average, one community bank every day in the United States. And that hurts our small businesses. That's why we were so glad to get this passed out of the House. Now, it's in the Senate now, and they're dealing with it. Remember, I serve in the House, not in the Senate. So that's important to understand. Now, we've also I'm on the Energy and Commerce Committee. This is a very important committee. I'm currently the only person from Georgia, Alabama, or South Carolina to be serving on this committee. In my class, in my sophomore class, there were 56 people, or 59 people. There were only 3 of us, no freshmen. Only 3 of us got on this committee. So I was very proud to get on this committee. We worked very hard. This is the committee in the House of Representatives. Over 2/3 of all the legislation that went before the House in the last session and last Congress went through this committee. It includes everything: telecom, energy, everything, health care, of which I serve on the health care subcommittee. So this is a very important committee, and you can see from this list here that we've done a lot of work in that committee. It's where we passed the American Health Care Act out. It's where we also passed the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, the user fees. We reauthorized those. That was very important. A lot of things coming out of that, including legislation dealing with the opioid epidemic. And it is an epidemic that we have in this country right now. I read something the other day, just earlier this week, about the opioid epidemic. The National Institutes of Health says now, and this is not fake news, we are losing 90 people every day to opioid abuse. Every day in this country, 90 people die from opioid abuse. It is an epidemic in this country, and we've got to do something about it. Healthcare. This, of course, has been what we've been working on. We did our job in the House. We passed the bill. It wasn't easy. It was not easy at all. A lot of people had to take some very difficult votes, but they did it. We did our job. It got under the Senate, and they didn't do their job. They didn't finish it. We've got to do something. Now, I know there may be some people out there who don't think we should do anything, but we've got to do something. Right now, we've got a problem. In the 1st District of Georgia, there are 17 counties, as I mentioned earlier. 16 of those counties only have one option of an insurance carrier on the exchange. That's not a choice. When you're the only game in town, you can set whatever price you want to set. We need a vibrant, robust insurance market where they're competing for our business. That's what we need. We need to make it where the insurance companies are competing for our business, not where we're having to subsidize them to make sure that they make a profit. That shouldn't be the way that this works. That's why we've got to do something about health care. It's in the Senate's court right now. They've got to do something about it. We've done our job in the House. Yes, we need to work together on it. We need to work in a bipartisan fashion, and we're committed to doing that. We will continue to do that. Make no mistake about it. We're not finished. We're not giving up. We're Americans. We don't quit. And we're not going to quit on this. We're going to continue to work on this until we get it right. Okay. Again, if you've got a question or a comment, it doesn't have to be a question. I'm here to listen to you. I want to hear what's on your mind. I want to hear the things that you're concerned about. I have the honor and privilege of representing the 1st Congressional District in the United States Congress. If that voting card is the voting card for this district, it may have my picture on it, but it's the voting card for this district. That's why I'm here, is to listen to you and to get your comments and your feelings about what's going on. We're not going to agree on everything, but we can be respectful of each other. It's not going to do any good at all for us to be ugly. So let's just be respectful of each other. And please, again, if it's personal, we have to get a disclosure from you. I don't want to be rude if you want to know something about a VA claim you got, but before I can talk about it, we have to get a disclosure from you before we can move any further. So if it is personal, staff, again, raise your hand. What do we got? 7, 8, 9 people here. So we got plenty of people. Okay? All right, who wants to get us started off? How are we going to do this? Before I go any further, I understand that we have one of our former teachers who is retired this year. Congratulations. Yeah. Listen, thank you. 30 years of education. Thank you for doing that. That's very important. You know, I read something the other day. Hey, what?
Taught American history, so important.
Yes, American history is important. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for all your years of service.
And thank you for coming to our class and our kids will never forget it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
More than a good heritage.
Thank you. Thank you. And Sheriff Peterson's here too. Thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate you being here. Anybody else I missed? Any elected officials? Any elected?
Our commissioners.
Your commissioners. Where are the county commissioners? Okay, thank y'all for being here too. Appreciate it.
Our city council.
Our city council. Thank you for being here.
Our judge.
Yes, Judge. Let him just a minute ago. You're going to have to help me. I'm sorry. I don't know.
I'm Mary Booth,
Our clerk. Okay, thank you for being here. All right. Okay, let's get started. Who wants to go first? Yes, ma'am.
Do I need a mic? Yeah.
Yeah, here we go.
I'm going to start off with healthcare because I think it's something that every one of us in this room share anxieties, worries, fears, and questions. Local polling shows that about 75% of your constituents did not approve of the House Republican health care bill that was passed. 75%. I speak as a mother of a daughter who had cancer at 13 years old and fought it for 4 years. I speak as the daughter of a mother who has Alzheimer's, who is in a nursing home, who depends upon Medicaid. I'm going to remind you, on all of us, we need to think about this, of the 6 promises that were made on health care during the 2016 campaign. Number 1, there will be insurance for everybody. The Congressional Budget Office has shown us that 22 million Americans would be thrown off health care under the bill that you were happy to pass. Those 22 million, I can't even imagine that abstract number, but my daughter and my mother could be amongst them. Number 2, no cuts to Medicaid. $80 billion cut to Medicaid in the health care bill that you passed, and we're happy to do so. My mother, who has Alzheimer's, depends on Medicaid to stay in her nursing home. Number 3, no one will lose coverage. Well, all of the CBO analyses have shown that there are millions upon millions upon millions of Americans who would lose coverage under both the House-passed bill and the Senate bill, which failed. 4, nobody will be worse off financially. I am waiting for that one. CBO analysis, again, shows that under your bill, the health care bill, coverage premiums would go up 20%. That's not keeping a promise. Number 5, get rid of artificial lines. I'm all for that. And number 6, everybody's going to be taken care of. With the cuts to Planned Parenthood, there will be 25 million women who rely on Planned Parenthood services who will be losing the access to cancer screenings, to birth control, and other issues having to do with women's health. 75% of your constituents are not for this bill. I want to tell you something. I do respect your position. But when I saw the video and the photographs of this man in the Rose Garden laughing at Americans who would be hurt by this bill, I lost my respect.
Okay. Do what? Okay, okay, we will. Well, thank you for your comments. I appreciate that very much. I dispute some of the facts that you mentioned there, especially about the American Health Care Act. I feel like we did what we said we were going to do. We have promised all along that we were going to have accessible, affordable, patient-centered health care, and that's what we tried to do in this bill. We are not going to agree on this. You obviously know that. You came a long way, came from Savannah to come here, and I respect that, and I thank you for coming. We're just not going to agree on this. I don't agree with the CBO numbers. The CBO numbers for the Affordable Care Act are wrong. So we're just not going to agree. But I do appreciate you traveling this far to come and be with us. Okay, more questions? Our comments? Is that it?
That's it.
What else do you want?
I would like to know why those of you standing in the Rose Garden thought it was okay to laugh at American families while you're taking away health care.
Ma'am, nobody was laughing at American families.
There are film, there's video, there's news clips.
If we are laughing, we are not laughing at American families. I know we're not going to agree on this, okay?
The bill that you voted for is a disaster for American families.
I respect your decision. Okay.
None of the promises that were made. I want to know if this bill comes back into conference after the Senate does whatever it's going to do. Are you still going to pass a bill?
It depends on whatever it is the Senate does. I can't tell you yes or no if I don't know what the Senate's going to do to it.
Republicans control the Senate, the Republicans control the House, the Republicans control the White House. So what's going on? Why aren't these primal issues, the primary issues, being resolved? Remember, day one.
All I can do is tell you I did my part. We did our part in the House. This did not get out of the Senate. We are not giving up. We continue to work, and we're continuing to try to get it. I'm sorry, you're not going to be happy, and I'm sorry.
Is anybody happy? Is anybody happy with
Ma'am,
the Congressional Budget Office analysis?
were you happy with it when they said how many it was going to cover through the Affordable Care Act, and they ended up being inaccurate?
More people have coverage now than
And how did they have it? 20 million people have coverage. 15 million of them we put on Medicaid. We didn't. The Democrats put on Medicaid. They don't need to be on Medicaid.
People like
Medicaid? No. People like your mother need a safety net program. She is aged, blind, disabled. She's in that group. She's not an able-bodied adult. And that's what Obamacare did. It took 15 million people and put them in a safety net program that was never intended for them. We need to help those people, but not in Medicaid. We need to focus on the people that it was intended for. We need to focus on the aged, the blind, disabled, mothers and children.
by taking $80 billion out of the budget?
No. What we did is we took $350 billion and we increased it to $500 billion. Now, tell me that's a cut? And the math that I was in, that's an increase. Look, okay, we'll get back on it on this, but let's move along so we can get some more people in here, okay? All right, questions, comments? We're off to an inauspicious start here.
No, it's just truthful.
I think you got one, the next row back, sir.
Okay, yes ma'am. Okay, a statement's fine.
May I change the subject?
Yes, please, we tried to. Go ahead. Check.
This is about building a wall.
Okay.
Could we just maybe hire more officers to patrol the wall and to watch and not build a wall? Because sometime in the future, like Reagan told Gorbachev, tear down this wall, somebody's going to tell us to tear down that wall. But I think maybe we could do better and spend less money by just guarding that area, the border better. And I think that is possible with our armed forces and not build a wall. That's my.
Okay. I'm glad you brought that up. First of all, we have approved through the House, not through the Senate, through the House, we approved $1.6 billion of what the President had requested to complete a wall in certain sections of the southwest border. I want to share a little story with you. I had the opportunity, when I was in my first year in Congress, I served on the Homeland Security Committee. And I had the opportunity for the first time to go to the southwest border. I went to San Diego, I went to Arizona, and I went to Texas, McKenna, Texas. I'd never been there before. I've not traveled much in my life, so I'd never been there before. Now, that's the first time I've been to San Diego. I got to San Diego, and they had a wall, and they need a wall in San Diego. There are 3 million people in San Diego County and 3 million people in Tijuana that are separated by a highway. You need a wall there. That's exactly what you need. Then we went to Arizona. You don't need a wall in Arizona. I mean, that's rugged terrain. That's mountainous terrain. Then I went to Texas. Now, as I say, I'd never been to that part of Texas. My daughter-in-law's from Dallas, so I've been there, but I'd never been to McKenna. Well, my vision of the Rio Grande was this John Wayne movie, this giant river. It is not a giant river. It is a narrow, winding river that in some areas is just knee-deep. You just walk across it. That's what the Rio Grande is. A wall, I don't know how you're going to build a wall around that. So to your point, we need, first of all, we need boots on the ground. We need technology. We need a lot more than just a wall down there. We need to protect our borders. But it's going to take more than just a wall. Because when you get to Arizona and you get to the Rio Grande, it's going to be really difficult to build a wall in all that area. We actually, in Arizona, they took us to a place that the week before we got there, it was a 10-foot fence there, and they had actually cut it halfway and put ramps and driven their truck over it. And it was wild. I tell you, I've never experienced anything like that before. So you're exactly right. We need technology down there. We need boots on the ground. We need a much more than just a wall.
When did it turn out that the
We,
Americans had to
now
build
ma'am, if we're going to make this work, we said we were going to be respectful. And you've already had an opportunity to ask some questions.
Well, my question is,
No, but
when
you've
did it
already
turn out
asked
to
the
be
question.
that U.S. taxpayers
Okay.
built this wall and not
Who else has a question? Yes, sir.
I have a question, have a statement. Concerning the wall,
Yeah.
I think, and I'm not a pro-wall person per se, but I do think a wall would help us 30 years from now if we have a change of party come in and try to deregulate some of the immigration laws that we have. I think a wall would be, we turn out a lot better because it would, if another president decided he wanted to eliminate personnel on that border, then we'd be just taken back up again. So I think the law does have some benefits for longevity.
Right.
On health care, the one question, it's not really a question, it's just an idea, it's something that is very complicated. But for example, right now we have the county commissioner sitting in here. Our county is paying workers' comp insurance and health care. I know that workers' comp is based off state law, where health care is federal, personal, however you want to look at it. I don't see why you can't combine those insurances to give small businesses and counties and people a incentive to insure their employees. But also, to me, I know they serve some different purposes, but there's still health care involved there. And I don't see why that can't be combined into one policy to save the county money, employers' money. It makes no sense for any company or any government to pay workers' comp insurance and health care.
Good point. Those are the kind of innovative ideas we need. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Speak on healthcare just a little bit.
the teacher retirement, and the teacher retirement system in Georgia. But right now, what I'm seeing happen to those of us who have coverage and are paying coverage are able to get coverage. Is in other words, our insurance costs are going out through it. And I know as County Commissioner Roger, you and Kent, when y'all helped me with this, 5 years ago when I became County Commissioner, our insurance cost was like $335,000 for roughly 50 employees. I think this year was over 600,000. And you know, and what's happened, I've seen this happen, our insurance go, and plus our coverage that we have go down, the deductibles go sky high. And so, in my opinion, we got to do something where everybody can get coverage, but at the same time, where those of us who have coverage are having to tough the load for everyone else. Right.
Good point. On average in the state of Georgia, in the last 3 years, premiums have gone up 106%. 106%. It's not sustainable. We've got to do something. Thank you for your comment. Yes, ma'am.
When I'm the economic development secretary of Lake County, and I've been to several recent meetings, and we've been talking about access to internet and broadband and so forth. And we've heard from some of the media companies and some of the other companies about what it would take for them to, bring service into communities like ours, which is rural and we're in dire need in some spotty areas. So I'm just curious, reading here about promoting broadband deployment and facilitating a 21st century wireless economy, what your thoughts and maybe initiatives might be toward creating incentives, which is what it looks like it's going to take to get these services delivered or deployed.
Well, thank you for that question, and you're spot on. And that's what we deal with in the Energy and Commerce Committee. And that's what we're trying to work on now. Is how can we get high-speed internet, broadband, to the rural areas especially? Because they're not going to be able to have economic development unless they are able to offer that service. And we understand that. That's why we're trying to incentivize some of these companies through tax breaks or whatever to expand and extend their lines to cover, especially in these rural areas. Look, they're for-profit companies, and they are going to want a return on their investment if they expand it out here. That's why it's so important for us to assist them, for the government to assist in this, because economic development is going to depend on this. And we understand that. And we are working on that in the Energy and Commerce Committee. That's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. In fact, we've got a hearing, I believe, Chris, don't we, at the 1st of September, when we get back in the Energy and Commerce Committee on that particular subject. Great question. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
No, you're fine.
I
No, you're fine.
As somebody that was the victim of rape when I was in high school, I talked to you. You were gracious enough to give me some time in July. And one of the things I asked you is Ohio is really seen as national best practice in processing rape evidence kits. When a woman is raped, if she decides the most underreported crime that we have in the United States, but if she does report, she goes to the hospital. There's an exam that's 6 to 8 hour exam to collect as her body is the crime scene. So it takes them about 6 to 8 hours to collect the evidence. There are kits dating back to the mid-90s in Georgia that have not been processed by the GBI. And so one of the things I talked to you about in July was how Ohio has become the best practice. The Republican Attorney General Mike DeWine, who is now running as for governor to succeed John Kasich, he's been a Republican U.S. Senator, Republican Congressman before. He is now the Attorney General of Ohio, and they are doing a bang-up job on processing these old rape kits that have been sitting there, and they processed over 10,000 kits in the last year, and they're solving these cold cases. Right now in Georgia, we have 10,318 kits that are seen in GBI labs that haven't been processed, and with the current funding levels of the State House to process those kits, my calculation is that it would take 8 years to process these kits, and there's women that are dating back to 1998 that have not been able to seek justice yet because these evidence kits have not been processed. Also, a very different way that Georgia does it in Ohio, they test every piece of evidence that is in the kit, every single piece of evidence, and so they're getting about 40% CODIS hits, where in Georgia, the GBI only tests the piece of the most DNA on it. So for instance, if her shirt has the most DNA, that's what they're gonna test. And legally, legally, for it to be considered rape, there has to be penetration. And so for instance, we had an assistant district attorney that was processing a kid, or prosecuting a case, and they said, the defendant said there was no penetration, and so she had to go back and ask the GBI to retest the piece of evidence that would provide that DNA. So it's just not very efficient how Georgia is processing these kits. And the 8 years that I'm telling you is only if there's no new kits. In 1 week alone in Savannah, we had 6 or 7 rape kits added to that. So I had asked you in July to contact her, and I've got his personal cell phone. If you contact Attorney General Michael Wine, see, when I talked to him, he said that when he was in the House and Senate, they did a lot of grants. So what can you do as a congressman to help the GBI and help Georgia process these rape kits and process them where they're testing every single piece of evidence submitted, so that these women that have been waiting since the mid-90s can finally get CODIS and they can finally do this? Because a person that rapes, that's not their only crime. Statistics have shown if they're raping, violently raping women, they're also doing other crimes. So what can you do as a congressman to help facilitate this problem in Georgia?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry you had that experience. I can only imagine how traumatic it must have been. Obviously, as you have said, it is a state situation. Now, you know, I'm at the federal level now. I was at the state level. And certainly, Hunter, were you in this meeting with us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did we have any follow-up? Do you remember anything?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, we'll go back and look at it and try to get in touch and get in touch with the state representative in Savannah and the state senator.
No, I have absolutely. So
Okay.
I thought he was doing a great job. He did a great. I don't know if you saw the Samantha Bee segment, but the state legislature passed legislation where they kind of turn these kids over that were in place, apartments and everything like that.
Right.
They turn the kids over, but now there's a backlog because of that legislation that they can't process these kids that have been sitting in police locker rooms all
Okay.
this time. But when I talked to Mike DeWine, he said that when he was in the House and Senate, there were grants that he helped work on legislation to have grants to the states. So that's what I'm saying.
For that? Okay.
That's why
That's fair enough. Sure, if there are grants available, we'll do everything we can to help.
If not,
Unless they're a sanctuary city, then we won't.
We can also reach out to Chris Carter's office.
Yeah.
It's different in Georgia. In Ohio, the Attorney General has preview over the GBI labs, and Chris Carter does not. In Georgia, the Attorney General's office is different, and the Attorney General in Georgia does not have purview over the GBI labs. The governor does. So it's structured different in Ohio and Georgia.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going. Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask a quick follow-up?
Sure.
Were you serious about the sanctuary city remark, or was that just a joke?
About the sanctuary city?
Yeah, like you wouldn't provide grants to test recommit?
No, we do not. I voted for a bill that does not allow for federal law enforcement grants to go to any sanctuary cities. I was very serious about that. If there is a federal law enforcement grant, then I voted for a bill that says that they will not get any federal law enforcement money from us, any grants.
Do you feel like that serves your constituents?
Yes, it does. It does serve my constituents, because if you're a sanctuary city, that means that you are refusing to enforce our immigration laws here in the United States. And if you're doing that, then I don't want to be sending you any federal grants to go to your city. We passed that law, the Sanctuary Cities Law. That's one of the 400 I was telling you about we passed out of the House. We also passed Kate's Law at the same time. Now, there are two things about the Sanctuary Cities Law that I was very proud of and very happy to vote for. The first thing was that those sanctuary cities, as I said, would not be eligible for federal law enforcement grants. If they're not going to impose, if they're not going to enforce our immigration laws here in America, then they're not going to get law enforcement grants from the federal government. The second thing that that law did, that bill that I voted for did, was that it gave victims of crimes committed by illegal aliens, by illegal immigrants in sanctuary cities, it gave victims the right to sue the city. Now that's significant in my mind. I was proud to vote for that bill. I was also proud to vote for Kate's Law. Kate's Law was named after Kate Singley. Did I get it right? Steinley. Excuse me. Kate Steinley. Kate Steinley was the young lady who was shot by an illegal immigrant in San Francisco and died in her father's arms. He had been deported 5 times. San Francisco's a sanctuary city. He was back, and they killed that girl, and she died in her father's arms. Now, I voted for that bill, and I was proud to vote for that bill. It increases the penalties for someone who is back into our country once they've been deported. This is serious, and I'm very serious about it.
I'm proud you voted for that law.
Thank you. I always get it wrong. I'm sorry. It's time. Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm Lynn Robbins from the Clinch County News, and you may have addressed this already, but you know, our hospital here is struggling, along with a lot of other rural hospitals in our state and in rural areas across the nation. Did any of the legislation that y'all passed with healthcare, or any legislation, is there anything coming down the pipe that could help out these rural hospitals?
Not at the federal level thus far. Now, what we've done in healthcare thus far has had primarily to do with insurance coverage in healthcare. It has not been, we have not started to address, to a great extent, healthcare costs. We've got to do that. And that's going to be a bipartisan effort. That impacts everyone. Right now, as currently the only pharmacist in Congress, prescription drug prices are something that is a big concern to me. They are out to skyrocket, going out of this world, and we've got to address that. Right now, I'm working with a number of Democratic legislators to come up with bipartisan legislation to address that. I'm working with Elijah Cummings from Maryland. I'm working with Peter Welch from Connecticut. I'm working with Dave Bozback from Iowa, with Lloyd Doggett from Texas. All of those are Democrats. But when it comes to high prescription prices, it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care if you're Democrat or you're Republican. You just have to pay those prices, and we've got to do something about that. These are the kind of bipartisan issues that we have to address. Rural hospitals, if you need this hospital here, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or independent, you need the hospital here. We all need it here. These are the kind of things that we've got to come together and work together on. Yes, ma'am.
I'll go for one again today,
Okay.
Congressman Carter. I kind of wanted to talk to you about my experience with the ACA. I've had a different experience from a lot of your other constituents. The ACA actually helped me greatly. If I was not able to enroll in my Blue Cross Blue Shield plan through the ACA, I wouldn't be sitting here today. And I think it's important to remember while you're talking about having a vibrant and diverse insurance market. Back before the ACA was passed, I remember sitting on the telephone and calling insurance companies in the area, and I'm a Guyton local, so I remember sitting.
Guyton, that's in Effingham County?
Right.
Okay.
And I remember sitting calling on the phone, and I was placed in a high-risk pool because of my pre-existing conditions. And so I was quoted anywhere from $1,300 all the way to $3,000. So because of my ACA coverage now, I've been paying, since that's passed, $176 a month. My insurance hasn't gone up at all. It's actually gone down. I actually switched to a cheaper plan as a result. And I'm right out in a rural area in Effingham, of course, too. I mean, you know the area, you've been out there, you're familiar with it too, because I used to fill your pharmacy right down the road.
Right.
You know where it's at. I think it's important for you to remember that I understand that my situation doesn't fit the rhetoric that the ACA has been disastrous and it hasn't worked, but for me it has, and it did before. There's no way that I would have been able to pay $3,000 a month for health insurance. It would have been absolutely impossible. And going forward, I just hope that you would keep in mind that this is why a lot of your constituents have some really serious concerns. And we really hope that you'll be willing to listen to us, for those that the ACA has worked for. Because for me, like I said, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you for your comments, and I appreciate that very much. Any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to know, I've been in Homerville practically all my life. And one of my main things is jobs in the area. I have bugged everybody that I know that I could bug. Now I'm fixing to bug you. All right? What? Tell me, what can we do to get more jobs into Homeville? I mean, granted, yes, we are a rural area, but even rural people in rural areas, they got to eat. They need a place to stay. You know, we need something in Homeville that's going to boost this place. Have you any idea whatsoever to get us on the right track?
Well, I was mayor at one time, but I'm not anymore. I'm not in the mayor, and I'm not at the state level, I'm at the federal level. Now, we can assist, and we do want to assist. But that's more of a state and a local issue. However, I have to tell you from my view that, you got some good manufacturing jobs here in Clinch County.
Not enough.
Well, arguably, that may be the case. You've been here all your life. I haven't been in this area, but I haven't been here. So you would know better than I, but first of all, I'd be thankful for what we got, because we met with the hospital authority, and that was one of the things that they brought up, was that we're very fortunate in this area, even though the population is low, most of the people, a lot greater percentage of the people have insurance because of the manufacturing jobs that are here. And that's a good thing. But to your point, at a federal level, I'm willing to do anything that we can to assist the local officials in economic development. We talked about broadband, about the internet, expanding it. That will help so much. Those are the type of things that the federal government can assist in. And those are the type of things that we want to help them with. Infrastructure, the roads. Now, that's a big issue. And that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about next. As soon as we get back in September, two things that we're going to be talking about: tax reform and infrastructure. The president wants to put $1 trillion in public and private funds into infrastructure. And that will help all of us. It will help rural areas as well as urban areas. Yes, sir, Judge?
Trade agreements between y'all back home. The county judge us all had meals, sewing factories, miles going up, they're not there anymore.
Right.
Had paper mills, sawing, and they're not there anymore. So trade agreements that I told you.
Right. And one of the reasons for that, and this is why I bring up tax reform, is because right now our corporate tax rate in America is 35%. And it's caused one of the highest rates in the world. And it's caused a lot of companies to leave and to go overseas and to take jobs overseas. What we're talking about doing is going down to 15%. That'll make us competitive here. Tax reform that we're talking about is going to impact the middle class here in America. It's going to have a significant impact. In Georgia, if we pass the tax reform that we're talking about, it's going to create over 50,000 jobs, and it's going to put over $4,000 in the pockets of Georgians. Middle class, upper class, doesn't matter. $4,000 on average. Now that's significant. That can get our economy going again. So that can help us draw more businesses to the area. All of those things are so very important. 10 minutes? Okay, we'll keep going. Yes, sir.
Okay, put on your energy hat. Let's change gears here. Are you still on the Energy Committee?
Yes, the Energy and Commerce Committee.
Okay, we just, Plant Vogel just bankrupted Westinghouse Electric and Toshiba. Totally bankrupted. And it appears Georgia Power looks to continue construction. Everybody in here has paid 7% on their electricity bill every month for the last 5 years for something that's probably not going to work, because now we have cheap natural gas. Now, I understand this is the purview of the Georgia Public Service Commission. Got it.
Right.
But they're going to come to you for a federal bailout too. And I'm not going to ask you what you're going to do. But I would tell you that it's time for the Southern Company to go to its stockholders and say, no mas, we're finished with it.
Right.
Mississippi just did the same thing last week. The Mississippi PSC said, Bud, it's yours. After the Kemper project failed out there. So I'll just put that bug in your ear. I'm tired of paying Georgia Power.
We all are.
Like I say, 7%.
I know. Right. Yes, sir.
Talking about infrastructure, give us an update on that. And if at all is feasible, if there's any section that could be connected, would be from Highway 82 to Highway 84, which is 18 miles. And it would be a very, very positive effect on this county, Atkinson County, and other surrounding counties. And so if you could share any information you have, I would appreciate it.
Well, and I appreciate it. Let me tell you, boy, that road is needed between Homerville and Waycross. That's been one of the worst roads. You know, my wife's from Waycross, and I got family in Waycross, and I know all about it. So they have made sure that I knew about it. But thank goodness that's getting done. Those, of course, are state projects. I don't know what the DOT has got. Now, we're in the first district, so Ann Purcell would be our representative here. And she would be able, I'll be glad to try to get her in touch with city council and give you an update on what's going on with that as well. I will. Okay. Yes.
I know you said one question.
That's okay. I think we've gone through once, unless anybody's not gotten to ask one and they want to ask one. Okay, let's start.
I think that's more of a comment than a question.
Sure.
But I've been listening to a lot of the, I guess it's rhetoric, I'm not sure what it is, but anyway, about...
We call it noise.
Okay, it is a lot of noise, about keeping jobs, in the United States, and we obviously have some reshoring of jobs and that sort of thing. But I guess what I'd like to sort of raise as an issue would be a foreign direct investment that we do get, that would be nice to attract more of. Because when those, particularly, I've been looking at all the auto assembly plants that landed so successfully in southeast part of the United States, and they bring with them, obviously, suppliers, generally from out of the country. And I've been at various meetings through my profession where there's job. I will say one positive thing that's come out of the talk about job loss, keep the jobs here. Some of the suppliers, some of the auto assembly plants who have landed are trying to bring their suppliers into the country because they're afraid that if they don't, they'll be paying fees, taxes and fees to bring the product in.
Okay.
But I just think that the FBI would be a good thing to sort of to seek more of.
Rick, let me comment on that, okay? What you're referring to is what was called the VAT tax, the border adjustment tax. The car factories that we have, Toyota, Nissan, and all them, they're assembly plants. They bring a lot of the equipment over from overseas and bring it here and assemble the cars here. That's what they do. A lot of their suppliers are overseas, and what originally the tax reform package had in it was that we were going to tax them to bring that stuff over here. Unless it was made in America, they would have to pay a tax on it. That's been dropped. That was too controversial. It was going to have too much of a negative impact and hurt the tax reform bill. It has been dropped at this point. Keep an eye on it, okay? Because you never know what's going to happen. But leadership decided it was just too controversial. They dropped it. So right now, the VAT tax is not in the tax reform bill. Okay, we've got time for a couple more. Yes, ma'am.
Comment.
Sure.
Majority of Americans would like to have the ACA fixed. There's nobody who says it's a perfect piece of legislation. It has problems. Also, the majority of Americans would really like to see Congress work. That means Republicans and Democrats sit down and fix the problems that we have in this country, so that we're ready to face the problems that are coming at us from outside the country. Now, are you willing to work across?
You said this is a comment. Now, is this comment or a question?
It's both. I'm asking, are you willing to work in a bipartisan way to fix the problems with the ACA? Because it's obvious that the way that this was done was not effective. 13 men go sit in a closed room and fiddle with the bill. And
You're talking about the ACA that was passed with only Democratic votes? It was not
that's
effective?
not true. There were 79 bipartisan hearings when the ACA was
How many Republicans voted for the ACA?
I don't know.
I do.
Probably not. But there were 70. I'm an independent voter, okay?
Yeah,
I
I
do
can tell.
not go along party lines.
Okay.
Because issues of obvious that we want Congress to work. It hasn't been working. What is going to make it work? Again, for us. We sent you there. Can't you work together? The teachers in this room, you know how to make kids work together, right? Maybe we ought to go up to Congress and teach you how to work together.
Okay.
Yes?
Yeah, come on up. You can come up anytime.
No, it's
All
a
right.
serious question.
Anybody else have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I just would like to know what's going on with our military. How many more times can we send our troops overseas? I mean, folks are having to spend 5, 6, 7 tours.
Yeah.
Can we not do something?
The third ID at Fort Stewart left this week for Afghanistan. General Clinch just took over command of the third ID, and he left this week to go over there. I was with him last week. Yeah. Listen, they know that when they signed up for it, and I know they're professional soldiers, and they're some of the greatest people I've ever met, but I tell you, it just seems like it's a vicious cycle, as you say there.
Do we have trouble with recruiting? Is that a problem?
I don't think we're having trouble with recruiting. I think we're having trouble with North Korea, with Syria, with Russia, and all the bad actors in the world. Yes, ma'am.
President Trump on TV, and I'm sure it was his speaker last week, and he was talking about transgenders and how they were going to be removed from the military. Now, when he ran for office, that was something he said he did not touch. Remember? Remember? Okay, my thing is, if he checked around, some of those discarding him would be transgenders.
I don't want my tax dollars paying for somebody's sex change because they're in the...
Well,
Okay. I understand. You make a good point. Listen, the president is the commander in charge. He surrounds himself with generals, and they make these type of decisions. It's their decision to make these calls. And they've made this, or at least he's tweeted it out. I don't know whether it's been a decision that has been ratified or not by the generals, but at least he has tweeted this out. But you make a good point. Okay, folks, I want to thank y'all for being here. Look, we live in the greatest country in the world. We can get together and we can disagree. We all have our different points of views, and trust me, we do have different points of views. And I understand that, but we can be respectful of each other. And again, I want to thank our veterans. I want to thank those who have served our country to give us the freedoms to gather here and to have the rights to come together like this. And again, I want to tell you, we live in the greatest country in the world. You hear about people who are trying to break into this country, but you won't hear about anybody who's trying to break out. God bless all of you, and God bless America. Thank you for coming.